annual meeting. Sylvia, do we have 8 commissioners present to make a quorum?
We have 8 commissioners present.
Great. And I will read this notice here. Move to authorize the Metropolitan Planning Organization of the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission and the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission to allow one or more members of those bodies to participate in the 9/28/21 meeting by electronic means of communication, subject to the provision of RSA 91A:2, Roman numeral 3. This would include each member of the public body attending virtually to articulate for the minutes why they are participating virtually and identify other persons present in the location from which the member is participating. Further, each part of the meeting must be audible or otherwise discernible to the public at the location of the meeting, and all votes of the public body be taken by roll call vote. Sylvia, do you need to take a roll call?
I believe this group, thank you. So this group will vote, the in-person group votes to allow everyone, all the commissioners, including those present virtually, to
Thank you for the
take a vote.
clarification.
Yeah.
Okay, first item on the agenda, election of new officers and
What?
Got a vote in front of you. You've had a motion and a second to allow the remote vote.
my apologies. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. You can be my parliamentarian in the future. Yeah, you'd think I know after 28 years what the honor is. Thank you, Bill. The first item is election of new officers, and thank you to outgoing Chair Jeffrey Moulton.
Actually, I'm sorry, before that, would now be the roll call. Now that we've invited them in, now we can do the roll call of everyone that's in.
So I wonder, because there's so many new people and new faces, if we could just all go around the room, and then I will do the roll call for those virtually. So Peter, why don't you start us off?
Okay, Peter Griffin from Windham.
Richard Tripp, Derry.
Scott Commissar, Candia. Bob Cody, Deerfield.
Dave Pierce, Gulfstown.
Charlie Byrnes, veteran. Double shot, veteran. Marcus Ponce Leon, Manchester. Mark Fergus, London, Deers.
Linda Moore O'Brien with the commission.
Jacob Lafontaine, Goffstown. James Vayo with the commission.
Bill Jean with Bedford.
Nate Miller, staff of the commission.
Rudy Carter, Candia. Bill Harmon, Auburn.
Don Waldron, Manchester.
Mark Soon, town of New Boston.
And I'm Sylvia von Aulock, and I'm the executive director and your host today. So going in, hopefully in some sort of order for those that are attending virtually. I'm going to make our speak for you. Okay. That looks like we have Brian Battaglia on the screen at the moment. So I'm just going to jump to Brian Battaglia in Londonderry.
Good morning.
And then I will go Deb Munson Chester.
Hi.
Hi, Deb. We have John O'Connor from Derry.
Here.
Thanks, John. We have Alfred Eisenberg from Francistown.
Hello.
Hi, Alfred. Barbara Griffin from Goffstown.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Barbara. We have Suzanne Brunel from Londonderry.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, Deb Levins, Londonderry.
Here.
Hi, Deb. Arthur Rugg, Londonderry.
I am here.
Hi, Arthur.
Hey, how are you?
We have Tom Clow from Ware.
Here.
Wyndham, we have John Hiltz.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Any community representatives that I might have missed? I'll also say part of the MPO, we have William Rose from DOT.
Good morning.
Morning. Nice skate behind you there. From DES, I hope this is close to how you pronounce your name, Rick DeCilio.
Close enough. Hi, good morning, everyone.
You tell us, Rick.
DeCillo. Good
DeCillo.
morning.
DeCillo. I added an E there, DeCillo. Okay, makes sense. We have a lot of staff online. We have Carl Epic. Morning, Carl.
Good morning.
Good morning. We have Adam Lasney.
Morning.
Let's see, Cam Perlman.
Hi, everyone.
We have Monique oh my God, Deshane.
Morning.
Monique, I'm so sorry. If I eventually, after 10 years, I will get your name correctly. Yeah. Zach Swick.
Morning.
Morning, Zach. And I think that's it. But I also would like to say good morning to our keynote panel. We have Margaret Byrnes from New Hampshire Municipal Association.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you.
Morning. We'll get to you in a minute, Margaret. Kevin Peterson, the director from Economic Development, Community Development Finance Authority.
Hello, everyone. Nice to be with you.
Good morning, Kevin. And we have Michele Cota from Senator Shaheen's office today.
Hi, good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Michele. We also have a few guests. We have Becky Hebert from Bedford Planning Department.
Morning.
Morning, Becky. Thanks for being here today. Did I forget anyone in our audience? I might have, I think Dean Williams might be here.
Yeah, this is Dean here.
Good morning. Anyone else in our virtual audience I may have missed? Okay, great. Whew.
Sylvia, I'd like to welcome Jacob LaFontaine. This is his first meeting as a commissioner representing Gulfstown. Jake.
Thank you.
And he comes well qualified. He's on the planning staff in Derry.
Fantastic.
Somehow he commutes from Gulfstown to Derry. That's okay.
Salem, but yeah.
I'm sorry, Salem.
I didn't recognize him.
It would have been a shorter commute, but Salem it is, right?
Salem.
We also have for the first time Rudy and Scott from Candia. And for the first time, we have Don and Marcus from Manchester. So thanks, everybody, and welcome. Okay, Peter, now.
Ta-da! Okay, the first item on the agenda is the election of new officers, and thank you to outgoing Chair Jeff Moulton.
Yeah, Jeff is unable to join us today.
So we're going to do sort of that at the next meeting.
As a separate.
Yeah, we'll pat him on the back next meeting. But we do want to thank him.
Okay, is there a motion from the floor to elect the slate of officers that you, I believe, have all received? Sylvia, or Linda, could you repeat the names and the positions, please?
Well, Peter Griffin from Wyndham as chair.
Dave Pierce, treasurer.
Yep. Mark Suinen, vice chair, and then ARPA as secretary.
Yes, that's our slate.
Are there any other nominations from the floor? Not seeing any. Is there a consensus of the group how you would like to take the vote? Is there a motion to accept the slate?
Second.
All those in favor? Do we need a roll call on that? We do need a roll call.
We do need a roll call. Do I need to roll call the people in the room, Bill, or? Okay, here we go.
And was Charlie Fairman the second on that? Oh, I'm sorry. Great.
Okay, here we go. Bill Auburn.
Yes.
Bill DeShaco, Bedford.
Yes.
Charlie Bedford.
Aye.
Bill Bedford.
Yes.
Candia, Rudy,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Chester, Deb,
Yes.
Deerfield, Bob,
Yes.
Derry, John,
Yes.
Derry, Richard,
Yes.
Francistown, Alfred,
Yes.
Goffstown, Barbara,
Yes.
and David,
Yes.
and Jacob.
Yes.
In Londonderry, Brian,
Yes.
Van,
Yes.
Deborah,
Yes.
Arthur,
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
In Manchester, Marcus,
Yes.
Donald,
Yes.
New Boston, Mark,
Yes.
Ware, in Ware, Tom,
Yes.
Wyndham, Peter,
Yes.
and John.
Yes.
And our agencies, DOT, William Rose,
Yes.
and in DS, Rick.
Yes.
Okay, I believe I captured that
Okay.
as quickly as possible.
Are there any abstentions? I guess not. Thank you all. Okay, now we get on to the keynote presentation, the ARPA panel. Sylvia, do you want to introduce them or shall I?
I'm happy to introduce, let's see, while I'm making them all co-hosts, and I have to find them. Just one more to find.
Third to the right on the top.
Oh, there.
Move.
Yeah, I got all of them. No, I can't make all three. Okay, so we'll start with, first of all, can I just say, and I'll make the view now speaker mode. What we're going to do is start with Michele Cota, but months ago, when I asked the executive directors what would they like to hear about during our annual meeting, we try to make it a special presentation, and we talked about the ARPA funds, and being such a hot topic, the executive committee really was interested about what communities were thinking about as far as what sort of projects might they do. And so instead of one speaker, at the time, we were very lucky because Margaret Byrnes had put together with several colleagues, and all of them are on this panel today, a beautiful morning of presentations. And so I asked them to do a repeat, but adding some information that they have learned since then, because I think that was back either the end of July or early August. So we have Michele Cota, as I mentioned, from Senator Shaheen's office, that's going to start us off, followed by Margaret Byrnes from the Municipal Association, and ending with Kevin Peterson. So I hope that's a good enough introduction. We're just very lucky to have all three of you. So start us off, Michele.
Wonderful. Hey, good morning, everybody. It's still morning, barely. I feel like time doesn't make sense anymore. But yeah, so I'm very thrilled to be here with all of you commissioners this morning, and thank you so much, Sylvia, for all of your help over this past year and a half. And so just a real quick introduction for those of you who haven't heard from me yet. I'm on the Senators team based out of Manchester, New Hampshire, and I'm on our policy and projects team. So my issue areas are business, economic development, workforce development, broadband. So most things that start with a B fall in my issue area. But of course, you don't need to keep any of us straight, because our office, you can reach out to any of us and we pull in the staff that needs to be looped in. So I'm thrilled to be here, and I know it's been quite a marathon year over this past year and a half, and it continues to be. And I think probably would be most useful for this presentation is I do have a message from the senator. She asked me to share on her behalf today, but also I can give a quick just federal snapshot on what we're looking at right now. And then I'll just do a very, very broad overview of ARPA. I know that's the those fiscal recovery funds are the focus of this event, of this training today. So, but I know Margaret and my colleague Kevin as well can go into much more detail of the particulars of those and what they've been hearing from municipalities around the state. So, so yeah, I wanted to do this because I don't want to forget, but I know that I have this message from the senator, and she said, please accept my best wishes as you gather for the 55th annual meeting of the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission. Thank you to the staff, the board, the supporters of the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission for your hard work to address the region's development needs. As always, the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission continues to embody the importance of community planning, and your expertise, leadership, and guidance are a vital resource to the many communities you serve. Your efforts not only help communities throughout the region to develop economically, but also aid in the growth of the social and cultural prosperity of its citizens. I'm impressed with your recent work from this past year, especially with your focus on the regional trail system. Our trails have seen more use during the pandemic, and it's great to see an emphasis on maintaining and expanding them so all can experience New Hampshire's trails in their fullest. Thank you for the invitation to attend. Feel free to contact my office should we be able to assist with any of the follow-up from today's annual meeting. Sincerely, United States Senator Jean Shaheen. I also wanted to add that Sylvia has been unbelievably instrumental in pulling together the different planning commissions from around the state as well. And I've done more than one brainstorm with her throughout this past year on what we need, where we need to direct resources to, how they should be controlled and how they should be developed, especially around broadband needs and you name it. So it's just, I just wanted to add that our planning commissions are very vital, especially for being the ringleaders for our counties, our regions, and our communities. So I'm very grateful to have your support and your partnership through all of this. A real quick snapshot. So the budget, that needs to pass in 2 days. And if it doesn't pass, then we are facing a government shutdown. So we know I've been scarred from when this happened before. Nobody wants this on any party in any way. So I know that they are working insanely hard right now to try and find this middle ground. The sticking point, of course, as I'm sure you've read, is the debt ceiling. I know a lot of House and Senate Republicans do not want to see that lifted, and that seems to be something where we may be looking at, can it be decoupled from the budget for now into a temporary continuing resolution for a couple of weeks, and we can kick the can down a little bit until we can figure this out. So I can't tell you what is going to happen in the next 2 days, the next 2 weeks, and the next month. So, but I know that there's a lot of work and a lot of meetings happening right now around that budget. So I'm pretty sure the senator will be working through this weekend and probably many other weekends coming up. So the thing that's involved with that quite a bit is that we have with the budget, and I haven't seen what has been included from other different committees, but we did see a lot of the infrastructure specific congressionally directed spending requests. Many of you have been involved with submitting those CDS requests to us, which is another word for earmarks. I know that's a naughty word, but those CDS requests that were able to be brought forward to recommendations, we actually did get about a dozen wins out of that, of infrastructure wins that are included in that. I know from Southern New Hampshire, I think we had a couple, one in Derry and another one in Bedford for solar projects that were included in that roundup. But again, we haven't seen what came out of other committees yet. So I'm sure we have more wins to add to that. The scary thing is if we go into a continuing resolution with the budget, those may drop off. So unfortunately, that could be a risk of what would happen if we're not able to get an actual budget passed in the next 2 days. So we'll keep you all updated on how those move, and maybe if that does happen, hopefully we have a lot of that legwork pulled together. So next budget cycle, next year, we can try again for those CDS requests, but we'll keep you updated. The other element is infrastructure. The Senate did pass the infrastructure bill, which is $550 billion in new funding, and that is with the House. The House said that they will begin negotiations on that on Thursday. Originally, they said they wanted to do a vote on this Thursday, but that seems to be being pushed back slightly. But that hopefully we'll be able to see what is able to stay in that. I know one of the elements that I've heard quite a bit from developers of economic development projects around the state is what is it called? The contributions and aid in construction, the SIAC tax, that has been burdening a lot of our development projects, where there's a tax on development of water and sewer to new sites in construction, and that adds an enormous amount of cost to these projects, and that will be removed if that stays in this package. So that's a good thing. We're still working on, there's still the Innovation and Competition Act that's also with the House that hasn't been brought. I don't know when that will be brought forward, but that did clear the Senate as well. That does a lot with foreign trade and positioning our country for cybersecurity as well. So that's a very important bill as well. And then we are still negotiating the next infrastructure package, which is the human component. You've all been hearing workforce, and how critically crunched that is, especially in a state like New Hampshire that has seen under 3% unemployment rate even prior to this pandemic. Now that more people have left the workforce, such as those who can't have affordable childcare, or those that are going back to school, for example, to restructure their careers, but we have less people in our workforce even on top of that. So we do need to put some significant investments into that area to develop in our workforce that we need to retain. In my issue areas, I know I focus quite a bit on trade positions. We're hearing more and more about the administration's position on trade and tariffs, but it hasn't been fully developed or announced. I know that they are still putting pressure on China, and there hasn't been talks of lifting those tariffs. Those have been made even more challenged because of just the market price of freight is enormous. That cost has gone up about 1,000% over the past year. And the senator did write to the Federal Maritime Agency asking them, what are you doing about this? Because there's a lot of price gouging happening, plus there's fees that are being accumulated at these ports where these containers are just being left because they're having trouble offloading at a fast pace. So what that does is it affects the cost of all of our goods. So that's a very important area that the senator has been pressuring the administration to take a position on and to look into. So we're involved with that, as well as cross-border travel from Canada. As you know, vaccinated Canadian citizens can fly in, they can't drive in. So that disproportionately impacts our bordering states, which New Hampshire is very much intertwined economically with Canada. So that just keeps getting pushed back on when the administration will consider opening that. And the senator has been pushing for that border to be safely managed and open for vaccinated travel between our two countries. So that's another area that's very hot on my plate right now. And just a couple bills, like there's some works with the employee-owned, the employee ESOPs. So there's some work where there's some legislation that she put forward that would make it easier for businesses to form those, as well as for sole source defense contracts that can have a continuation of a contract. So phase 2. It would make it easier for those types of structured businesses to continue working with the federal government. And then there was a bill that she just introduced, which is called the Community College to Career Fund in Higher Education. And this fosters as a public-private partnership fund for states to allow our higher education and our certification programs to collaborate with businesses and municipalities to train people for high demand fields. So this should create another bucket of funds that could be used to help work on those unique needs of each part of our state. So, so just a couple other points before I turn it over back to Sylvia to hopefully bring in Margaret. We have had some great news with new market tax credits. There's about $60 million that are there, and there's a number of projects. This is one that the senator has been pushing to make sure that we have an equitable distribution of those funds, so New England can receive those dollars and it can be used to support our economic development projects throughout the state. So I know that they've been eyeing a number of sites and projects, and this is done new. It's the Mascoma CDE that manages these programs that are managing that fund in New Hampshire. And I know they are collaborating with different communities in Southern New Hampshire as well. They work statewide with that program. So that's a great project or a great resource. And I think I talked about, another good news is anything you guys can do to continue to support the Small Business Development Center. They're just unbelievable what they've done. I consider them basically Olympians in all of this, but we were able to announce a grant for them of $350,000 for them to expand services in the northern counties. Hopefully that will help them to preserve their resources so they can stay a very strong force, a supporting force for not just our businesses, but also our nonprofits throughout the rest of the state as well. So we're very thrilled about that. So yeah, about the ARPA funds, I'm just gonna quickly set the tone, and then I'm stop talking because I talk too much. Sorry about that. But that's a $350 billion program for going to states, counties, and municipalities. In New Hampshire will receive a significant amount of funds, especially to, and that gives the state a bucket of about $994 million that they can use for non-entitlement communities and for state purposes as well. So we should have all received in May about half of those funds, and the other half should be coming out next May. And basically, there's a lot of flexibility with these funds. The senator really fought hard to make sure that there is maximum flexibility as much as we can get consensus for to pass this bill. And basically, if you can tie it to mitigating an impact from the pandemic in some way, you are very likely able to use it in that way. It can't go to offset like taxes, like reducing taxes. It can't go to pensions. It can't go to rainy day funds. It can't pay like municipal outstanding debt. But other than that, I mean, there's a lot of ways that it can be used, such as to replenish whatever shortfalls in revenue associated with the pandemic, or can be used for the unemployment fund at the state level as well to bring it back up to pre-pandemic levels. So there is some flexibility when it comes to around the tax areas, but it can't be used to bring down taxes. Or so again, there's just so many ways to use these funds. There are a lot of flexibilities that it can be used for things like mental health, youth programs, childcare, housing. It can be used for payroll and health benefits for emergency responders and medical reimbursement programs. Even new businesses can potentially, if there's a strong enough case for it. For example, if they're unable to secure loans in any other traditional way, they could reach out to things like the Community Loan Fund or the Business Finance Authority if they were to stand up a lending program to help be that safety net for those businesses that were unable to secure loans, whether for various reasons associated with the pandemic. Or it can be used for like building modifications moving forward, regardless of if you were able to demonstrate a revenue loss as a business owner or a nonprofit. So anything that could be used to make things safer to prepare for the pandemic in its ongoing state. Or training. If you have lost your job, you're a citizen who lost your job because of the pandemic, there could be a training program that is stood up by a community that could be used to help them learn how to start their own business, for example. So there's a lot of ways, just as long as you can tie it to there and you're prepared with that, you really do have a lot of flexibility. And I know that we are starting to hear more and more about what our municipalities and our non-entitlement communities are doing and what they plan to do with those funds. And so we're starting to see more and more of those plans, but of course, a lot of it still is to be fleshed out. So, but that's what I have to say. And I think, I hope what I said was useful. And if there's any questions or anything, is there a chat? I think there's a chat. I'll put my contact info in there as well. And plus you can always ask Sylvia how to find me.
Thanks, Michele. Any burning question from the commissioners for Michele before we move to Margaret? I said there'd be allowance for one burning question. Anyone in our virtual audience? All right, Margaret. Oh, we've got one, Alfred.
Yeah, I have a question about broadband. You mentioned the broadband expansion. You mentioned there's a total already of 994 million ARP funds, but I assume that's the funds that have already been doled out and assigned to each town.
That is the state's total allocation. I'm not sure how the state's doling that out. I defer to Margaret on how to answer that. But I know you mentioned broadband. There are two infrastructure needs that are inherently tied to this pandemic without much justification, and broadband certainly is one of them. And and water and sewer investments as well in communities it can be used for. So yeah, those are projects that could be spent at the local level, or the state may use that. And I believe the state plans to do a matching of 50-50 grant program for those projects.
It may be, Alfred, that, oh, sorry, Alfred, I'm interrupting you. It may be that Margaret will answer your question. So why don't we move to Margaret? And I believe I've already allowed Margaret co-host, right? So.
All right, Sylvia, it says that I'm disabled from participant screen sharing, so maybe you could make me a co-host again.
All right, I'll do that again. Try now, Margaret.
All right.
Good.
How are we looking?
Good.
Excellent. You should be able to see my screen. So thank you everyone for having me. Thank you, Sylvia, for inviting all of us to do this sort of whirlwind ARPA presentation for the commissioners this afternoon. I have a lot of content in here, more than I'm going to share, but since I assume the PowerPoint has been or will be shared with all of you, I thought some of the content might be helpful to look at later after the presentation is over, if it's of interest to you. So, quick introduction to ARPA. You know, like most federal projects or packages or legislation, I'm sure Michele can relate to this. There's a common language that we all have to start speaking when we're talking about it. So NHMA put together this document called ARPA at a Glance. It's a 2-page PDF that has sort of all the snapshots of what every local official needs to know about ARPA, and it's up on our ARPA page. But one of the items that we put in our ARPA at a Glance is a glossary of terms, so that we're all sort of speaking that language when we're talking about these funds and what they can be used for. Across the country, there are sort of two designations of municipalities when it comes to ARPA funds. We have the metropolitan communities, which are basically the same as the entitlement cities under the CDBG grants. And in New Hampshire, we only have 5 metros: Manchester, Nashua, Portsmouth, Rochester, and Dover. And what that means is that they had a different formula for calculating the amount of direct funding that came to them, and that their funding came directly from US Treasury, not as a pass-through from Treasury through the state to the local level. Their funding came from Treasury back in May. All of the other municipalities, the other 229 cities and towns in New Hampshire, are NEUs. They are non-entitlement units of government, and per Treasury, all the NEUs received their funds through the state, and the state was required to set up internal infrastructure and a program to give out the money, basically, that they were entitled to. The state was not allowed to make any changes to the amount that NEUs were entitled to. They were not allowed to put any additional restrictions on the uses of the funds, but they did have to be sort of the pass-through distribution entity for the federal funds. Couple other terms that you are probably all familiar with, but just in case, the interim final rule, the IFR. I have been frequently reminded that interim final rule is oxymoronic. I did not make it up. It is indeed what the rule is called. And that is because although it is the rule on what municipalities and states and counties can do with their funds, it is in comment period. It's sort of in an expedited comment period. They put the rule out. It is effective. Thousands of comments have been received on the interim final rule, and a final rule will come out that will hopefully clarify some things and potentially even include some additional flexibility for municipalities and states and counties under the interim final rule. And that's an important thing too to keep in mind. It wasn't that long ago that I was asked what the rule is. Someone was asking me, well, I've read the interim final rule, so that applies to states and counties, but when is the rule coming out for non-entitlement units of government? And I think it's really important to just reiterate that the interim final rule, which will eventually become the final rule, that is for everyone. Those eligible uses apply to everyone receiving coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds. So states, counties, cities, and towns of all sizes. For non-entitlement units of government, so for your communities, who of you are from NEUs, the state of New Hampshire has contracted with an entity called Guidehouse. Maybe some of you or your folks from your town or city has had interactions with Guidehouse. They are a nationwide consulting firm with expertise in state and local funding and state and local finance, and they are available to answer questions for NEUs about eligible uses, about compliance, and about reporting under the coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds. We are still trying here at NHMA to really get that word out, because I think, unfortunately, that still too few local officials are aware that Guidehouse is available and that it's an entity that NEUs can avail themselves of. And finally, 2 CFR Part 200, you've probably heard of this. These are the uniform administrative requirements, cost principles, audit requirements for federal awards. They do apply to the coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds. You may hear them referred to just as uniform guidance or even just as UG. Michele touched a little bit on the eligible uses for coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds. I think when the interim final rule came out, and it came out before NEUs had received their funding, and as many of you know, NEUs had to affirmatively request their funding from the state in order to receive it. So when the IFR came out, I think a lot of municipalities, especially small municipalities, looked at these eligible uses and said, we don't have any of these things. These uses don't apply to small communities here in New Hampshire. And certainly some of the things don't apply to some of our communities. COVID-19 mitigation efforts like medical expenses, behavioral health care, public health safety and staff. We don't have that in all of our communities here in New Hampshire. We don't have qualified census tracts in all of our communities here in New Hampshire. Some communities don't have police departments. They don't have fire departments. They don't even have small businesses that are in need of these funds. So I think that was the initial reaction. However, when you dive into the rule and then you sort of dive into the correlating FAQs that US Treasury has put out, I think you will see that there is something here for everyone, although there is plenty that could be made more flexible or clarified more in the final rule. So a lot of municipalities are looking at replace lost public sector revenue, which Michele mentioned is the most flexible of the uses, premium pay for essential workers, and also of strong interest investing in water, sewer, and broadband, really with a strong emphasis on broadband infrastructure. And I'll sort of circle back to that and what we're hearing from municipalities at the end. When Treasury put out its guidance for reporting and compliance on the funds for municipalities, they really made even clearer than the IFR did that municipalities can use some of their grant funds to cover the administrative expenses related to spending, implementing, reporting, and complying with the coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds. So we'll circle back to that in a moment as well. Calculating revenue loss, I have a slide on it here. I actually have 2 slides on it, but I won't go into detail. I just sort of want to draw your attention to it, that it's probably the most widely of interest to our cities and towns in New Hampshire, this particular eligible use, but it also has a lot of confusion surrounding it, what it means, what you can use it for, and even how you calculate it. So some real basics about revenue loss. We really encourage every municipality to do the revenue loss calculation. In the beginning, we were hearing from cities and towns saying, we don't have revenue loss. We actually had better than expected revenues during the pandemic. And so this eligible use is not going to apply to us. That's what we were hearing. And we're still hearing it a little bit, but less than we were. And the reason is because when municipalities do the calculation under the Treasury rule for calculating revenue loss, they are almost certainly going to see lost revenue, even if they do not see lost revenue from what they plan to have. And the reason for that is because Treasury allows under their rule for municipalities to basically compare their revenue growth to a counterfactual growth trend, a 4.1% per year revenue growth factor that is so much more generous than what revenue growth they would have seen, that you will be able to show a certain extent of revenue loss, even if you don't think you can. And there are a couple of spreadsheets up on our website that you can use in order to calculate the revenue loss using the Treasury rule. They're very self-explanatory, and they will get you to where you need to be using not your own internal calculations for revenue loss, but Treasury's rule for revenue loss. And it's really important to do it because under the IFR, basically municipalities are able to spend their local fiscal recovery funds on a wide array of projects and expenses up to the extent of revenue loss. So it allows municipalities to spend their funds basically on general government services, general government expenses, up to the amount of revenue loss, giving you more flexibility than the other standalone eligible uses have. So it's important to know where you stand with revenue loss under the rule. This slide is just an example of a town with a December fiscal year end doing a revenue loss calculation, and it does link to the GFOA's revenue loss calculator, which I think is what we are generally recommending municipalities use to calculate their revenue loss. And one more point on revenue loss. There's been a lot of questions about whether municipalities can use their funds to reduce the local property tax rate up to the point of revenue loss. So let's say the municipality calculates revenue loss, it has a loss, wants to use that portion of its funds to offset the tax rate, to reduce the tax rate. The IFR very clearly prohibits states from using their coronavirus state and local funds for offsetting the tax rate. It does not prohibit municipalities from using their local funds to offset the local tax rate. And although we technically need to wait until the final rule comes out to have that answer addressed once and for all, the consensus among stakeholders and experts who are lecturing on this law and talking about use of the funds is that the restriction for states does not also apply at the local level. That being said, Treasury's intent is that the funds will be used in a forward-looking way to fund projects that are needed, to address inequities, to address shortfalls, and not to sort of look back and offset previous expenses. So that's what I can tell you on sort of revenue loss and offsetting property taxes. And I want to mention it because it's a recurring question that we've been getting since the rule came out. administrative expenses can be reimbursed or covered under the rule. So municipalities, probably one of the biggest reasons, other than we don't think we have any projects that fit the eligible uses, the other big comment we heard was we don't have the internal infrastructure to handle these funds, to accept them, to report, to do the compliance, to understand federal award requirements and procurement requirements. And we totally understand that. Fortunately, municipalities, counties, the state can hire an individual or individuals to assist with administrating the funds. And that can include using a portion of the funds for salaries for individuals who work in-house. It can include hiring temporary, part-time, or full-time staff to sort of follow the life of the funds at the local level. And it can also include just hiring an outside entity who has expertise in handling grant funds and in grant administration, hiring them on, contracting with them to provide support and assistance to municipalities with the administrative expenses. And we certainly recommend that cities and towns do this or consider this. There are a number of federal requirements that attach to funds like this that most of our smaller and even mid-sized municipalities probably just have never had occasion to deal with, because this is an unprecedented direct funding coming to cities and towns that we just don't see. So certainly would encourage, if a municipality to look who do we have in-house who we can develop or who can handle this. If not, look outside for hiring an individual temporarily, or just hiring a consulting firm or a grant administrator to assist with the funds. That is a very good use of a portion of the state and local fiscal recovery funds. The IFR does have some restricted uses. I've touched on a couple of them, but you also can't put it into sort of a rainy day fund and say, well, we don't have any expenses now, let's just put it aside for when we do, because again, it's meant to sort of address impacts associated with COVID-19. We're still waiting on the final rule, which I've already mentioned. The information we have is that it will be out late fall, which is unfortunate, but I guess understandable given the thousands of comments that have come into Treasury on the IFR. The period of time that the funds can cover, so the funds can be used for expenses related to a certain period of time. And that period of time is March 3rd, 2021 through December 31st, 2024. That being said, not all your funds have to necessarily be spent by December 31st, 2024. You can also obligate an expense, so incur an expense by December 31st, 2024, as long as you then do ultimately spend the funds no later than December 31st, 2026. So as you can see here on the timeline, it's a multi-year process for spending the funds. And we hope that municipalities will slow down and plan and receive comment and stakeholder comment and do a really comprehensive needs assessment and think long-term about the best and highest use of these funds, and not feel that they need to rush to quickly spend these funds. Because again, spend or obligate by 2024 and spend any obligated funds by the end of 2026. So there is a multi-year period in order to spend these funds. I think that sometimes the urge is, with normal grants, you apply for a grant, you get it for a specific purpose, and then the goal is to spend the money and sort of get it out the door right away. And I think some municipalities are having the urge to do that, to get it off the books, to spend the funds, to move on. But that is not necessarily the goal of these funds. And there is a valid reason to wait to start spending until the final rule really is out and we all get a chance to digest it and see if there are more flexibilities or more opportunities for spending created by the rule. This is just,
Margaret,
yeah.
if I might just, this is Sylvia. Michele is doing a great job putting some of these resources into the chat, but I also
see
needed
that.
to just remind you that we have just maybe a 2-minute wrap up before we move.
Thank you so much. I have always been long-winded, so let me just fly through to the last slide here. Couple things on this slide. I want to make sure everyone is aware. What's that?
Where's Callie?
Oh, sorry, I'm hearing some feedback. I apologize. I want to make sure that everyone is aware that the first reporting deadline is October 31st of this year. It only applies to funds expended through September 30th, 2021. So that can also be a reason to sort of slow down and wait, because if you haven't expended any of your funds by September 30th, you will still have to do your report, but you won't have any details to report at that time, which will give you another year to plan and get ready for the first real report to come October 31st, 2022. So final slide, what are we hearing from our members? We're hearing still confusion about eligible spending uses under the IFR, anxiety about not having the final rule yet. We're getting a lot of questions about federal procurement standards and UG, and a lot of requests for more technical support and resources. Again, urging them to hire folks on or to hire out to assist them. The projects that we're hearing about, there is a strong interest specifically in water and broadband. And with regard to broadband, there are other funding sources out there, which is making broadband, the landscape of addressing broadband, even more confusing. Some of you may have seen last week that the Capital Projects Fund was announced, and the guidance for the Capital Projects Fund. This is a fund that goes to the states, and one of the eligible uses is broadband. And we understand it to be the kind of fund where municipalities are going to have to apply to the state to avail itself of some of those funds. But there is a lot of information still needed on how the CPF works and how it can be leveraged with the local funds that cities and towns already have. And the final point I want to make is, and I think Michele alluded to this a little bit previously, one of our concerns is, even though there's a multiple year period for cities and towns to spend these funds, supply chain, labor shortages, other issues related to that are going to affect the ability of municipalities to achieve some of their projects. And that is compounded by the fact that every municipality and state and county across the country has the same eligible uses for their state and local fiscal recovery funds. And so, for example, if we all want to, pave all our roads, there's simply not going to be enough labor, enough materials for everyone to sort of do the same thing. So one of the issues that we are starting to talk about, and we foresee sort of, rolling out in the year or so to come, is some of the challenges with completing some of the more infrastructure related projects that are allowed under the eligible uses. So that's my whirlwind presentation. We have a link to our ARPA information page on the last slide. And also, of course, you can always contact me, but also contact information for our government finance advisor, who primarily advises on some of the more technical aspects of ARPA and the state and local fiscal recovery funds. So if there's time, thank you so much, Sylvia. Of course, I'm happy to take a burning question if there is one.
Any burning question from the commissioners? If not, we will
Do you have any
go.
information on the capital
What did you call it? The
The
capital?
Capital Projects Fund. We do have some information. I'd be happy to share what we have so far. And I think it's important to note that although everyone is referring to that as a broadband fund, that's not the only allowable use for that fund. We hope the state will use it for that purpose or use a large chunk of it for that purpose, but it's technically not the only eligible use under that fund.
So you'll share it with us?
I absolutely will. I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, thanks so much, Margaret. Now we will hear from Kevin Peterson.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to share my screen here as well. Sylvia, can you see the CDFA logo there?
I sure can.
Okay, great. So I'm Kevin Peterson. I'm the Director of Economic Development for the Community Development Finance Authority. And for those of you who don't know who we are, we're a state chartered nonprofit that focuses on community economic development. Last year, we deployed about $20 million across the state. That includes $5 million in state tax credits, CDBG funds for the non-entitlement communities, so the NEUs that are outside of Manchester, Nashua, Portsmouth, Rochester, or Dover. And we also have a number of clean energy resources. And I think it's fair to say that the American Rescue Plan really offers a very unique opportunity. Some even have been saying that it's a once-in-a-generation opportunity for New Hampshire municipalities to consider investments in projects that can build long-term resiliency and economic well-being for our communities and our residents, including infrastructure, affordable housing, downtown revitalization, and some other creative economic development approaches, and leveraged with other state and federal resources that are either currently available through CDFA or that may be coming down the pike in some of the upcoming federal legislation that Michele talked about. We'll be able to layer funds here to help address many of the critical needs that have been highlighted and exacerbated by COVID. Today, I want to get right down on the ground and share some examples from other New Hampshire communities where CDFA and other funding is really moving the needle on advancing local priorities. I'll do that from 3 New Hampshire communities, and then I'll also add some highlights from the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission region. So infrastructure investments really help communities to take a critical first step toward downtown revitalization and economic growth. And one of the examples that we have is Littleton. In Littleton, the town invested in upgrades to sewer and stormwater infrastructure in their river district, enabling completion of a downtown river walk and expansion of several businesses. And these investments were a key component in the community's larger effort over the past several years to revitalize a portion of the downtown that faces, or actually backs up on the Ammonoosuc River. Our investments there of state and federal resources help to resolve some critical infrastructure challenges, particularly the water and sewer, help improve the living conditions in that area for residents in the downtown, expanded employment, and reconnected with what is a really beautiful and historic riverfront. Last year, we awarded tax credits to the town to support the creation of Riverfront Commons, which is on the opposite side of the river from downtown. This project is focused on economic development and recreation to create a connection to a rail trail that exists along the river, establishing a welcome center, providing a permanent home for a farmer's market that supports 45 small businesses, and expanding public parking. So together, these projects serve as a great example of a strategic public-private partnership that is really moving the needle in Littleton. A second example here is the need for affordable housing. And that need, as we all know, has only been exacerbated by the pandemic. And I've heard that the term COVID and climate refugees moving into New Hampshire and pushing up housing prices and really dramatically affecting the real estate market. So there are provisions within the American Rescue Plan Act for local governments to invest in projects and programs that counteract the specific negative economic impacts of the pandemic, on affordable housing and other priorities. So communities have the opportunity to collaborate with local partners like for-profit and nonprofit housing developers to address this challenge and to meet local housing needs. And you have a great partner in the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission region in NeighborWorks, Southern New Hampshire. This type of collaboration is happening elsewhere, and in particular in the Upper Valley, where multi-layered support helped Twin Pines Housing, which is the regional affordable housing nonprofit there, to meet critical housing needs in Lebanon and elsewhere. And the city of Lebanon worked with Twin Pines to build new apartments on Tracy Street in West Lebanon for low and moderate income residents. This is a 29-unit development. It's close to public transportation, it's close to employment and community facilities. In fact, the library is right across the street. A regional transportation hub is at the corner. And it's the first net zero affordable housing project in the state. So Twin Pines has also worked closely with the city of Lebanon on a project at the village at Crafts Hill, which CDFA supported with tax credits and federal CDBG funds. And that investment enabled significant improvements to the quality, function, and energy efficiency of several hundred aging apartments, as well as the construction of a new community building to serve those residents. So these projects serve as an excellent example of local strategic collaborations around housing that can provide long-term value to the greater Lebanon community, the families that live there, and the economy of the region. CDFA is also committed to helping communities revitalize their downtowns and village centers where existing infrastructure is already concentrated and where economic development can really have a very significant impact. We have a multi-year relationship with the city of Franklin, and over the course of several years, we've invested in facade improvements, community facilities, affordable housing, energy efficiency, nonprofit capacity, and economic development projects. Most recently, to help with a public-private partnership that's creating the first whitewater park in New England on the Winnisquam River. That project broke ground this summer. And the funds that we've invested have actually leveraged millions of dollars of other public and private investment into not only that project, but many of the other projects. And those investments are really paying off. They're already attracting new businesses to the downtown. They've attracted additional private housing development. One of the old mills there is in the process of being redeveloped for housing. They're seeing expanded tourism, a growing tax base in one of New Hampshire's most challenged mill towns. And we've actually can see the tangible results of these investments. We developed a set of community progress indicators, which pull together 13 different measures of socioeconomic benefit or challenge. And we've seen over the past several years that those community project progress indicators are actually moving up in Franklin as a measure of socioeconomic well-being. So we can track the progress there. An important element of a stable community is a robust and well-functioning nonprofit sector, particularly in a state like New Hampshire, where many services are provided by non-governmental organizations. I touched on this earlier with respect to affordable housing, but there are many other ways that our nonprofit partners are building community. CDFA has made numerous investments in the construction, renovation, and enhancement of buildings and facilities owned by nonprofits working in the arts, youth and child development, food and security, mental health services, business and entrepreneurship, and many other fields. In the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission region, recent CDFA grants include to the Palace Theater, the Boys and Girls Club of Manchester, NeighborWorks Southern New Hampshire, the New Hampshire Food Bank, the Courier Museum, Families in Transition, the Manchester YMCA, and many others. In most cases, projects proposed and developed by the nonprofit organizations that I mentioned and others represent important community infrastructure that could not otherwise be advanced by a city, town, or county. And these projects usually have really strong support of the communities and the people that they serve. So as you think about deployment of ARPA and other federal resources, and even CDFA resources, nonprofit organizations can really be critical partners for you. So American Rescue Plan funds, as I said, provide communities with perhaps a once in a generation opportunity to invest in both traditional types of economic development, such as water and sewer infrastructure and housing, as well as creative approaches, such as working with small business on facade improvements, streetscaping to improve a neighborhood's environment, enhancing outdoor spaces for COVID mitigation, or supporting renovation or improvement of a local nonprofit facility. CDFA is ready, willing, able to support your community economic development initiative. We've got a wide variety of resources, including planning funds, the tax credits that I mentioned, CDBG funds outside of entitlement areas. We have pre-development loan funds and clean energy funds. And across the spectrum, we offer technical assistance to basically help you connect with the right resources and possibly even liaison with other state and federal funders. So we're happy to answer your questions. For more information, you can contact any member of our team, or you can go to our website and we have a little schedule a meeting button across the very top page. Just tap that button and one of us will get back to you and schedule time to help you with what you need. So that's my presentation. Again, I'll pause for questions, and I also will put my information into the chat.
All right, any burning questions for Kevin? And may I just say thank you so much to all our panelists for your time and your energy and coming to our annual meeting. So any burning questions? I believe you have covered it all, the three of you. So thank you so much. I think there are a lot of great projects I hope to see from all our communities. Certainly, I know from Francistown, broadband is a big issue. If Adam, if you could capture all the resources in the chat box so that we might add those to our meeting minutes, that would be great. All right.
Also, just as a reminder, we'll have the folks' presentation on our website as soon as we can.
Yes, we'll have these presentations on the website. We also take a recording, and Monique on our staff does a fantastic job coordinating with the rest of our staff and getting this on YouTube. So that'll be up there shortly. And while we're talking about staff, I do have our latest staff member on here. Tammy, give a shout out.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, everybody. My name is Tammy Zamoyski. I'm really excited to be joining the Planning Commission.
Thanks, Tammy. Of course, I already put you on the spot, so there you go. That's the kind of thing I do. So thanks for being here today, Tammy. She'll start October, I believe it'll be the 13th. So thanks for being here today, Tammy.
Yep.
All right, we're ready for our next exciting item of business.
And this is the presentation of the James W. Tethers Award.
Yes.
And presenting the award will be Bill DeShaco.
All right, Bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Try to zoom in to you. All right, gallery. Where's Bill?
Bill's here. Bill's behind you.
Behind you. Yeah, I know he's behind me, but I need to zoom in. Let's see. Is that it? All right, I am moving. Bill, wave a little bit.
I feel like a Hollywood square, I'll tell you that much.
I set the
Okay,
precedent.
there you go, Bill.
Thank you. As you know, the James W. Tethers Award is presented to recognizing professional excellence in the community and regional planning to professional planners. In addition to a very full role of town planning director, which continues to be extremely busy in spite of COVID, the person winning this award Also took the time to serve on the Council for Housing Stability. It's the New Hampshire Council for Housing Stability as a representative of the New Hampshire Municipal Association. And has always been active in the New Hampshire Planners Association. Although the primary responsibility is, of course, the town, this individual is a voice for regional cooperation and planning of transportation and land use. She gave freely of her time and is always ready to provide answers to questions she's informed about, and if not fully informed, takes every opportunity to develop a better understanding of the problems. She exemplifies the dedication demonstrated by previous Tethers Award recipients and is a role model for being an empathetic and supportive leader, providing well-detailed and well-developed recommendations to the land use boards of their community and ensures that every voice has an opportunity to be heard. As such, she sets a wonderful example for people who are interested in this professional career. I'm proud to announce that this year's James W. Tethers Award goes to Rebecca Hebert Bedford. There's a plaque. Thank you, Becky, for all your hard work and support.
Thank you very much, Bill, and thank you very much to the commission. I'm honored to be receiving this award and wish I had joined you all in person.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Becky, for all you do, and thanks for the nomination, Bill.
We'll get the award off Becky.
Thank you.
And also, just FYI, the Raymond E. Closson Award presentation is postponed until next month.
Yes.
And the last, issue, but acknowledgement we would like to bring up is a thank you to the outgoing chair, Jeff Moulton. I've enjoyed serving with Jeff, and I hope to do as well as he has.
Okay, great. Oh, I see Ray back there. I don't have you on my list. All right, up next.
And one thing also too, I'd like to thank all of the new members who have volunteered their time in their respective communities for serving on the board of Southern New Hampshire Planning. It's a really excellent organization, and I look forward to working with you all.
Thank you. Yes, thanks to everybody. I think James is up next, Peter.
I think we need to do the minutes from August.
Oh, the minutes. Okay, this means a roll call. Buckle in.
Is there a motion to accept the minutes for August?
So moved.
Is there a second? Sylvia, the roll call.
Roll call. We're just doing first names and community again, and that means I can zip through. Bill from Auburn.
Yes.
Bedford, Bill DeShaco.
Yes.
Charlie.
Abstain.
Bill Jean.
Yes.
Candia, we have Rudy.
Abstain.
Abstain, thank you. And Scott had to leave early. Chester, Deb Munson.
Yes.
Thanks, Deb. Deerfield, Bob.
Yes.
Thanks, Bob. Derry, we have John O'Connor.
Yes.
Thank you, John. And Richard,
Yes.
thank you. Francistown, we have Alfred.
Yes.
From Goffstown, Barbara.
Yes.
Thank you. Dave Pierce.
Yes.
Jacob. Abstains, thank you. From Londonderry, Brian.
Yes.
Suzanne.
Yes.
Deb Levens.
Yes.
And Art.
Yes.
And Martin.
Yes.
Gotcha. From Manchester, we have Ray Clement, who's on the phone in the hall. We have Marcus.
Abstain.
Abstain, thank you. And Don.
Abstain.
Great. We'll get back to Ray. New Boston, we have Mark
Yes.
and Tom.
Yes.
From where? Sorry.
Yes.
And from Wyndham, we have Peter
Yes.
and John Hilt.
Yes.
Yes, okay. And we have William Rose from MPO. The meeting minutes now. From DOT, what am I saying? MPO? Okay, maybe he left. From DES, Rick?
Yep.
Oh, thanks, Rick. Okay, I think I captured the MPO. Is Ray back? Ray is back. Okay, thanks, Ray.
Thank you, Sylvia. Is there any old business to discuss? Sylvia or staff?
No, I don't think so. I think we're good.
And, okay, I see new items under, 2 items under new business. Measuring public participation, and that's will be presented by James Vayo.
Right. Should have that up here. Why is it up here? All right. So we can find it.
Yeah, I can pull it up.
All right, good. In the meanwhile, while we're setting up, please everybody have some cake. I will. If we need to get the lid off. I took a little bit earlier in my cake and more pizza.
All right, can people online see the presentation?
Yep.
Yes.
Great. And I apologize to everyone at the back of the room behind me. I'm gonna try to do this for both virtual and online, but I feel like no matter what, people are gonna be staring at the back of my head at some point or another. So I apologize in advance. Also, it's been somewhat of a long meeting, so I'm gonna try to run through this in a very brief amount of time. I'll try to keep it to 5 minutes here. So in these few short minutes, I just want to update you on the MPO's outreach and engagement activities. And I'm framing this update around the public participation plan, which was updated in 2020. The participation plan is important because its adoption defines the techniques which the MPO uses for public engagement. The public participation plan sets a 4-step evaluation process, which includes establishing measures which happened in the adopted plan, the gathering of baseline data, conducting surveys, and then review and of data and outreach techniques, so that participation activities can be revised as needed. The participation plan establishes measures for collection of data, and since the adoption, staff have been gathering baseline data for identified engagement techniques in order to establish performance measures. And so today's brief is focused on the data collection aspect of this process. Within the participation plan, there are 8 identified techniques for soliciting participation. And those techniques include public hearings, surveys, customer service, outreach events, diversity and inclusion, public input, the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission webpage, and social media tools. Relative to those identified techniques, we use baseline data to solicit, well, we use the techniques tell us how to solicit participation. And since the techniques are methodology and not measures, a metric or a reportable data point needs to be established to determine how the MPO is performing over time. So in this example here, we're reporting on MPO attendance at meetings for for the MPO meetings themselves, this meeting, for instance. And this is one type of measure that can be used to track year-over-year performance in outreach and engagement. What's nice about this particular metric is that we collect this data every time we have a meeting. We take attendance, we report that in our minutes, and so it's easily reportable, it's easily trackable. It's a good example of a metric. Here's another example of a baseline metric, and this is this falls under the website participation technique. This is also an easy measure for Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission to track because we use a tool called Google Analytics to see who's visiting or how many people are visiting our webpage, how often, and what parts of the website they're using or visiting so we know what information is most popular, what information maybe isn't popular. And from that information, we've gathered that on average, in a given month, we'll have 560 average active users visit the website. And that comes out to about 6,800 visits annually. We're collecting baseline measures across every technique. And those baseline measures are listed here. Because we're limited on time, I'm not going to go into all of these, but I just want to show you briefly the measures that we've identified. In parentheses on the right of each one of these measures is just an abbreviation of the technique that's identified in the public participation plan. So going back to that first example I gave you right here at the top, MPO attendance is a measure of a technique, which is public hearings. So that just kind of helps structure how this data was collected and why it's collected. So because we're limited on time, I'm not going to talk anymore about measures, but I am going to talk about a little bit about what has happened over the last year. And given the impact of COVID-19 over the last year, we've made a couple changes in our outreach process that have taken place to address the challenges presented by the pandemic. The first of those is the use of virtual public meetings. So as a result of COVID-19, the Planning Commission has adopted a hybrid meeting format, which you're all experiencing right now. Half the commission and half the attendees are online, and half of you are here in the physical space of the SNHPC offices. And so one thing to note about this change in process or procedure is it appears in terms of access to meetings that the hybrid format has been a benefit for both the commission members and meeting access by the general public. This was also mentioned earlier in the meeting today. While physical and social distance issues are addressed through hybrid meetings, there are still issues with meeting times, which present challenges to working families. And so in order to increase public access to the planning process, Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission has started posting our MPO, our TAC meetings, and special presentations onto a SNHPC Planning Commission specific YouTube page. And so if you ever miss a meeting, you can go catch that meeting here, or if there's content that you're interested in from a specific prior meeting, you can go back and visit this and collect that data. Now, this is a process that we've implemented in the last 12 to 18 months, I believe. So you won't get a ton of history here, but you will see moving forward that this information, these meetings will be accessible to you through YouTube. Within the theme of access, the Planning Commission has also implemented new tools. This is kind of hard to see here. I apologize, I should have made it larger, but one of the unique things that's happened about our webpage is that we've added an accessibility widget to it. So this little blue circle with a sort of a person diagram in it opens up to expand into a menu of different tools that manipulate what you see on the webpage to make it accessible for people with a variety of different hearing and vision impairments. So, so there's screen readers, things that change the text, things that change the contrast of the page to ensure that people with any level of hearing or vision ability are able to view and consume the content of the webpage. Additionally, Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission has stepped up posting of MPO information on Facebook, reaching an average of 100 people per week. And so we know that the general audience, the general public in the region is using social media as a form of information gathering. And so our presence there is really intended to make sure that information about the planning process that comes through the Metropolitan Planning Organization is available to the general audience through platforms such as Facebook. Finally, well, not finally, but getting close to the end of the slides here, Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission has continued to put on special events and outreach events. During the last fiscal year, we had presentations on the transit-oriented development plan in Manchester, volunteer driver fairs, EV permit streamlining, scenic byways, and staff at the Planning Commission have participated in a variety of community-led efforts, such as the Manchester Environmental Justice Advisory Committee, the Manchester Community Action Coalition, and others. So what's next in terms of where we started this presentation? We talked about collecting data and establishing baseline measures. Well, one of the other elements of the public participation plan is conducting surveys, both a survey of stakeholders, that's you, and the general public. So what I'm going to ask you to do is keep an eye out over the coming weeks. Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission is going to put together a customer satisfaction survey and distribute that to you, the stakeholders, to find out how we're doing with public outreach and what, if anything, you think we could be doing differently to improve on the outreach process. In addition, we'll send out a survey to the general audience, which will provide information about how they can participate in the planning process and help educate them about what is possible in terms of the transportation planning process. This concludes my presentation. I have the contact information here on the slides. If anybody wants more information, they can reach out to me directly. Alternatively, they can reach out to any of the staff here at Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission, and we're all here to help you. So thank you. If anybody has questions, I'm happy to answer them.
James, I do have one question. You touched on diversity and inclusion, but what's being done to measure that specifically?
So we track how many hours staff spend participating in community-led efforts by persons of color. So with the Environmental Justice Advisory Committee and the Manchester Community Action Coalition, both of those are meetings that are led and organized by persons of color on behalf of communities that are traditionally underserved or historically underserved by the transportation planning process. And so that's the sort of core metric right now. I would have to go back and look at what the participation plan establishes. I think one of the things they look at, and something we don't measure, is the racial makeup of the boards that establish the MPO and the TAC. And so so that we don't track, or we haven't historically tracked. And so in lieu of that, we're tracking this information about staff participation at minority-led community efforts.
If you have any ideas, though, we're totally open.
Definitely get back with you on those.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you, James.
Thank you.
Is there any other business to come before this MPO meeting?
Not the MPO side. of the House.
I would just put a plug in that tonight at 7 o'clock, the Manchester Community College, there's the Gasset hearing, Governor's Advisory Commission on Intermodal Transportation to hear comments about the draft 10-year transportation improvement plan. So Councilor Gatsas, along with New Hampshire DOT and myself, will be delivering the regional presentation at that hearing. If you have any thoughts or comments on the draft 10-year plan, it would be a great opportunity to share those thoughts. It will be at the auditorium in the Manchester Community College.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Just to
Do I have a
piggyback
motion?
on that, this is Monique from SNHPC. There is an online option as well. So if you follow us on Facebook, you will see the link that you can join on Zoom rather than in person if that's something you're interested in. Thank you.
Thanks, Monique. Thanks, thanks, Nate. Yes, Gatsas. Oh my gosh.
Right.
Gasset hearing tonight. Okay,
So moved.
we're ready, Peter.
Do I have a motion to adjourn the MPO
So
meeting?
moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Okay,
Opposed? No. Abstained? No. Okay. I'd like to call to order as Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission. The first item is, and we'll do a combination of roll call and action on the minutes of August 24th. Could I have a motion to accept the minutes of August 24th? Is there a second?
Yes.
Sylvia?
I believe that was Bill Herman, right?
Yes.
You got that, and Dave. Okay, here we go. From Auburn, Bill.
Yes.
Bedford, Bill DeShaco.
Yes.
Charlie's left. Bill Jean,
Yes.
still here. Thanks, Bill. From Candia, we have Rudy. Thank you. Chester, Deb Munson.
Yes.
Bob Cody from Deerfield.
Yes.
John O'Connor Derry.
Yes.
Still here. Good. Thank you. Richard.
Yep, I'm still here.
Thank you. Alfred from Francistown.
Yes, here.
There you go. Thank you. Goffstown, Barbara Griffin.
Yes.
Thank you. David Pierce. Let's see, Jacob. Londonderry, we have Brian Battaglia.
Yes.
Suzanne.
Yes.
Deb Levens.
Yes.
Deb. Thank you, Deb. We were at the edge of our seats for that, yes. Art Rugg.
Yes.
Thanks, Art. Martin. Thanks, Martin. Manchester, we have Ray.
Yes.
Thanks, Ray. Marcus. Don. Thank you. New Boston, Mark Sunan.
Here, yes.
Thank you. Where we have Tom.
Yes.
Thanks, Tom. Wyndham, Peter.
Yes.
Thank you, Peter, and John.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Under new business, Sylvia will be presenting a discussion on the updated MPO, Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission bylaws.
So for some of you by now, you've learned this so much, you could recite this by heart. But certainly our executive committee, as well as the last meeting at the MPO, we talked about the bylaws. Actually, what started this about for our new members a few months ago, well, probably 6 months ago now, because of our virtual meetings, we wanted to expand our bylaws to allow virtual meetings and these hybrid meetings. So we've done quite a bit of work on our bylaws to allow that. We have expanded the bylaws to specifically include specifications of the MPO. So we have done that. We've reorganized it. I think I've gone over this quite in detail last meeting, unless Peter, you recommend it. I think unless I hear otherwise, I think everybody is probably pretty ready to go through it, or what would you have?
I concur with you. Are there any final comments or questions for Sylvia? Not seeing any. Could I have a motion to accept the updated MPO Southern New Hampshire Plan Commission bylaws? And is there a second?
John O'Connor, second.
Thank you, John.
Okay, that was a double second. Ray got in there just before you, John. I only know that because I was looking right at Ray.
And let's take a vote on this. All those in favor?
We have to, I'm sorry, go through my fantastic roll call.
Yes, you do.
Yes.
Hybrid.
Okay, here we go. I will, you can time me to see how fast we go. Bill Auburn.
Yes.
Bill DeShaco Bedford. Bill Jean.
Yes.
Rudy Candia.
Abstain.
Deb Munson Chester.
Yes.
Bob Deerfield.
Yes.
John Derry.
Yes.
Richard Derry.
Yes.
Alfred Francistown.
Yes.
Goffstown Barbara.
Yes.
David.
Yes.
And Jacob. In Londonderry Brian.
Yes.
Suzanne.
Yes.
Deb.
Yes.
Thank you. Arthur.
Yes.
And Martin. In Manchester Ray.
Yes.
Marcus.
Abstain.
Donald.
Yes.
In New Boston Mark.
Yes.
Thanks, Mark. Where we have Tom.
Yes.
Wyndham Peter.
Yes,
And John.
Yes.
Thank you.
thank you all. Okay, final item on the agenda. Are there any members of the public present or online that would like to comment? Are there any commissioner insights?
Commissioner insights.
I have a insight. I think that since we're running virtual meetings or hybrid meetings all the time, rather than have Peter wait to the end to vote, we should do the vote in reverse alphabetical order every now and then.
Oh, you're gonna twist me too, with that, huh?
Trying to push Sylvia over the edge, huh? Okay.
Doesn't take far. All right.
Is there a motion to adjourn the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission meeting?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all so
Thank you
much.
so much for
No, you
joining
wanna
us.